Well, it is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, September 17th, and I will call the City of Lacey regular City Council meeting to order. Before we get started, we do have a full council tonight, and the mayor is with us, attending remotely. And so all council members are accounted for, and if you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Next on our agenda is our land acknowledgement. We, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Squally Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember these tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that the community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854. And with that, can I get a motion for our agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about tonight's agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. First item on our agenda is our public recognitions and presentations. And tonight we have our youth council representatives appointments, and I will hand it over to Sadie Siglin.
Well, good evening, Council. It's good to be here again. My name's Sadie Siglin. I'm the Lacey Youth Council Staff Liaison, and I'm here tonight to introduce kind of our 2024-2025 Youth Council. You may see some familiar and new faces in the back of the room tonight. Our Youth Council is here observing their first council meeting since their appointments in preparation to give reports to council for the first time in October. At our last meeting, the Youth Council did their elections and elected their leadership positions and their recommendations for youth representatives to advisory boards. The Youth Council has voted for their youth mayor, Zuri. Zuri is a third-year Lacey Youth Council member. You may recognize him from previous terms. They have elected their deputy mayor, Sophia. Sophia is also a returning Lacey Youth Council member who served as a library board representative last year. This year, Isabella has been nominated to be our youth clerk. She has a lot of valuable experience at her high school and her extracurriculars, taking notes and providing leadership roles. One new role we have added to Lacey Youth Council this year is a social media coordinator, and that role will help take pictures of all of our meetings and events and work closely with our public affairs team to see how we can build our social media and our Lacey Youth Council account to get more traction and really connect with that younger youth demographic online. So you will see them all this year. Additionally, they voted for their recommendations for youth representatives, which we are asking for approval tonight. Faith Kim has been selected to be the representative as the Historical Commission with lots of experience in extracurriculars at her school and knowledge of the area. Aryan Kumar as the representative to the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Board with lots of community involvement and service in community crisis lines. Avani Kumar has been selected to be the representative on the library board, and she has extensive experience volunteering with local groups and serving on roles at her school. Kirian Sills Powell has been selected as the representative to the Commission on Equity, and Kirian serves as one of our youth representatives from a homeschool virtual student body, which is a great opportunity to add a new perspective at our Commission on Equity. And then Eljad Tuhor is selected to be the representative to the Ad Hoc Human Services Work Group, which is a new addition to have a Lacey Youth Council representative this year. And he has extensive experience working in volunteering and serving in roles at his school as well. So we're excited to present these recommendations tonight.
Okay. Would anybody like to provide a motion?
I am. I would move that we appoint the youth council members identified in Table A of our packet to serve as advisory board representatives for the 2024-2025 term.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any commentary or discussion on this item?
Just have a quick one.
Councilmember Cox.
I just want to say how excited I am to see how many of you are in this group this year. And I hope you feel very welcome, and we certainly value what you have to say. Thank you.
I definitely want to second that. I'm so excited to see some new faces, and seeing that the city's civic reach is reaching into all of our schools, plus some of our home schools. So this is going to be a very exciting year for the youth council, for the city council as well. And please feel free to reach out to us for questions, for whatever you need. We're here for you guys. Well, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Welcome to the team, everybody.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is our Lacey Fire District 3 update, and it looks like we have Fire Chief Steve Brooks.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I should make sure the technology works in my favor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. And for the benefit of the viewing audience, it was hard for me to believe when the city manager and the mayor invited us for an update when I started looking back through my records how long it had been since we had done one of these. We've been here for some specific purpose items, but quite some time since I had offered a full update on the state of the district. So I will try to be timely and sensitive to your meeting, but I do have several things I want to work through. Again, because it's been a while and we have new members of the council, but particularly members who moved to the community, occasionally we battle a bit of an identity crisis, or at least an identity confusion. And so I always like to clarify that for everyone and remind them who we are as the Lacey Fire District. So not only do we serve the city of Lacey, but we also serve its entire urban growth management area and the unincorporated areas outside for a total of about 70 square miles, loosely running from Puget Sound to the north to the Nisqually tribe boundaries with the community in Yelm to the south, and Olympia to the west, and Pierce County and the Nisqually River to the east. That now, hard for me to believe when I say this, is about 110,000 residents in that 70 square mile area. For frame of reference, we're anticipating this year in 2024 about 18,000 responses to 911 calls. I'll break that data down for you a bit later in the presentation, but that means that there are about 50 responses every 24-hour period from one of our 5 community fire stations or our satellite medic unit. That is done by a dedicated group of 170 staff, career staff, and volunteers. Again, because we are a special purpose district and standalone, we have our own human resources, finance, IT services, and all of those things. We have largely moved from a volunteer response or fire suppression force to almost exclusively a career force there, but we still maintain volunteers in many roles and responsibilities and support functions. Again, we do that from 5 community fire stations and the 1 satellite paramedic unit that's in partnership with Thurston County Medic 1 that we staff out in the Yelm community that provides those paramedic services throughout the southeast portion of the county. And then we're also really excited about some of the partnerships we have, and one of them I like to highlight is our regional repair and maintenance facility that actually serves about now almost 90% of the emergency services vehicles in the entire county from 9 different agencies, and some now in Mason County as well. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about the work that's been done at that facility. And then lastly, in 2020, when we completed the new fire station out on Stillicum Road, our Station 34, we were able to convert the old station into a training and education center that we now run our training division out of. So a great repurpose. Some quick highlights of what we've done in 2024 to date. This is one where I want to pause for just a minute and say thank you to the city for your support. Hard to believe that the district has now been in existence for 75 years. For those who recognize the difference in the timelines between the city and the district, so when the district incorporated in 1949, many of the active commissioners, firefighters, and other members were active in kind of advocating for Lacey to become its own entity. And so then in 1966, when the city incorporated, there was a decision to be made about whether they started their own fire department or maintained a relationship with the fire district. And we're thankful that we've had a great relationship and continue to serve the city since then. So we celebrated back in April. April 2nd was the actual voting date. We had a total of 400 and some odd voters, I think, back in 1949, and about a 95% approval rate. So we felt good about that. But we appreciated the city's support in that celebration, along with the school, with Pope John Paul School, where the original headquarters was. A couple of other things to highlight. We've started a regional approach to training new firefighters and emergency medical technicians in the county, and I'm happy to report that we graduated 35 new firefighters among 6 different agencies back in June of this year. And so that's a partnership that we really value. It was kind of brought about out of necessity during the time of the pandemic. Many of the training programs throughout the state were either completely shuttered or shut down or had to limit their capacity. So we found ourselves kind of having to be innovative and take on those new roles. So a big shout out to our training division who stepped up and established this new academy. Another area that it's hard for me to believe when I went back and started looking at my prior reports out to the council and the history of the district. I've been talking about this for the better part of my now almost 13-year tenure as the fire chief, what we now call a community risk reduction division. And for those who may have known the fire service for many years, we used to have what we called a public education division or the fire marshal office. And really since 2004, when financial constraints caused the district to have to kind of disband those functions, and they were divided among the city and the county respectively at the time, this has been a goal to get back into a more proactive look at not only how do we respond to emergencies in our community, but really how do we advocate to prevent them. And so we were just finally able this year to appoint a new assistant chief over community risk reduction. And I'm happy to say that this is an area where I see a great frontier of partnership with the city. So I really appreciate the partnership we've already had with Director Dolby and her staff, and then we continue to build with the city manager and the mayor about how we'll continue to work together more and more to the benefit, particularly of the businesses in the community, how we can make sure it's a safe community and plan for new development as it comes. And then another one I'm really excited about is the work of our support services division. All of the things that I never dreamed of when I got into the fire service and even when I took this position as the fire chief, standing up a role that really is more primarily focused on things like social work or other socioeconomic issues that we deal with in our communities that are largely not tied directly to emergency response. The impacts of the unhoused in our community or high utilizers, folks who rely on our services for things like primary health care when we're not the right tool. So I'm really excited we were able to stand up this support services division in 2021. And it probably, as I look back on the tenure of my career, this is one of the things I'll be most proud of is the impact that just 2 people in this division have been able to make. So I want to just quantify that for you just a bit. First, I'll show, and I hope it renders okay on the slide. I know these are it's always dicey to know how this is going to show up. But this shows just a kind of a pie chart of the totality of our responses for last year in 2023. You'll see that about 75% of that was for rescue and emergency medical services. That's not uncommon for us. And then it's divided out among the others that you can see there. So the weather events, public service assistance, things where perhaps someone has fallen, for example, but they're uninjured, or cancellations, false alarms with fire alarm systems and the like. And then all fires. And I always like to highlight this. It says only 2% is fires. And so everyone asks that question about why do we have so much invested in fire suppression, fire protection? If you do the math on that 18,000 calls that I highlighted, when you divide that out, that's still about 360 calls or fires specifically every year. So one a day that we're still averaging of fire of some type, along with all of these others. So that's why it's important to still be prepared for those worst case scenarios. I break this out quickly by our response areas. I mentioned those 5 community fire stations. I had these rendered on a map. It didn't show so well, so I'll just walk through. Our headquarters station there across from St. Martin's is the busiest by far, Station 31. But our 2 substations, the one on Mullen Road, which is Station 33, and Steilacoom Road at Station 34 are kind of neck and neck for second busiest. And that east side of the district in Station 34 is certainly our most rapidly growing and developing area, along with the up-and-comer Station 35 out on the north end next to Jubilee on Willamette Drive. And then our satellite medic unit out in Yelm, you'll see that they're steady there at about 1,200 calls a year. And one that I'll come back to in a moment because it is important based on our future plans is Station 32. And historically, Station 32 has been our only unstaffed or volunteer-staffed station. That's the one that exists out on the Elm Highway close to the Nisqually Reservation. It has continued to kind of have a flat, if you will, response. It doesn't grow year over year near like the other stations have, but there are some things that are kind of being externally brought to us that are going to force us to look at how we staff that, and so I'll highlight that in just a moment. You'll see the demand line on the left is the individual incidents in each station area, but the important number on the right is that's the total number of units or responses that go with each of those calls. And so, for example, when we have a significant fire event, that may take multiple units to mitigate that, and so they're unavailable for the other calls, and that's why redundancy is really important in our business. Things like if we just have the engine company and the paramedic unit, that would count as 2 in that case. What's not reflected here is our partnership with the private ambulance company, so that number would actually be much higher if we were rendering also the public ambulances, and so I want to also give a shout out to Olympic Ambulance as our primary partner here in Lacey. They've really stepped up and helped us serve a growing community. But this is where I wanted to get to based on that demand is I want to highlight the work that almost exclusively has been done by our support services division. So when we stood this up in 2021, one of the biggest things that we were facing was a challenge, particularly with our assisted living facilities or other skilled nursing or primary health care facilities that our perception was they were either understaffed or overutilizing for some other reason 911 services. So the blue line is 2021, and then I want to highlight in particular our highest 2 utilizers, those second ones in. Those are assisted living facilities, so it's NH's nursing home, assisted living facility is the other, and these are the largest ones in our service area. If you can see the demand line there, we cut in just a single, the subsequent 2 years after support services implemented at the end of 2021, the best net impact we can come up with is a reduction of approaching 2,000 calls per year by just the implementation of the work of support services, going into those facilities, doing education, retraining with staff, helping them better understand their roles and responsibilities or allocating. They also have focused significantly on going into individual homes where there are high utilizers, maybe they don't have family locally in the community, and seeking out other means of support. So they've done tremendous work. In order to have kept pace with this demand and growth, had we not had support services, it would have likely required us to add at least 1, if not 2 additional response units, which is exponentially more expensive, more people, and all those things. So we're really proud of the work they're doing. They also work really closely with your mobile outreach team, the MOT team through the Lacey Police Department and other resources in the county area, and so it's been a great partnership. I next want to talk a little bit about our capital facilities plan. So one of the things I last briefed on was the incremental work we were doing there. Probably the most iconic thing that we've done that we're so proud of is our new station out on Stillicum Road. Again, I want to say thank you to the city. When we initially built that, it was in the county's jurisdiction, and we worked through some challenges there. And then shortly thereafter, it was annexed. And so we've just done some recent update work there that I want to highlight in the next slide. And I just want to again say how much of a pleasure it was to work with city staff and all your support on that. And I want to highlight Deputy Chief Sorosky, who's with us tonight, and his team for managing this project. So what was just completed, and we got our certificate of occupancy, and we're in the process of occupying, is an update to the regional repair facility that I mentioned before that serves 9 different agencies just in our county. We basically were able to double the footprint, and for a frame of reference for those who may not know a location, if you look kind of in the back, you can almost see the city's facilities there. This is adjacent to the regional athletic complex there on Stillicum near Marvin Road. Really excited about this, working with the city of Olympia, who actually occupies it and is our tenant. So we provide the facility and they provide the mechanics. This is going to more than double their effective workspace. The shop that they were working out of before was designed with only our district in mind and intended to maintain about 40 service vehicles, and they're now in excess of 300 vehicles that are going through those facilities. So you can understand why they were a bit desperate for some added space. So this has been a great add. I really appreciate the city's support. So now looking forward to 2025 and beyond, one of the things, and I mentioned it earlier, again, for frame of reference for those who might not be as familiar, we as a fire district are subject to review periodically, most often every 5 years, for review by the Washington Survey and Rating Bureau, which is the oversight body that assigns insurance ratings for individual jurisdictions. So cities are always rated independently. In our case, we get a rating for both the city and the unincorporated areas that are outside of it. I was going back in preparation for this, looking at my prior briefings to the council. Ironically, 10 years ago in 2014, I came to you and said, I'm excited to report we got upgraded from a Class 4 to a Class 3 within the city limits. I'm happy to report that we maintained and actually improved within that Class 3. We didn't make it to a 2. Olympia is the only 2 in the region, and that's still on our goal board in the future, and we'll try to keep up there. But we did have a challenge that was recognized and brought to us by Survey and Rating Bureau in the unincorporated areas. And so the area served by the station I mentioned earlier out on Yelm Highway, Station 32, our lowest volume station, one where we've never had career staffing, because we've not been able to maintain volunteer force from there. And the dynamics in our world have just changed. It's very hard to keep a long-term volunteer force that can maintain all of the training requirements for response capabilities. We've not had that there in a while, and so if we don't do something different with our staffing model, then that area that's served by that station is at risk of losing their current rating, which is, if there's a fire hydrant close by, it maintains the same Class 3 that the city does. If they're outside of that, it can go to a Class 5. And this is a 1 to 10 scale, again, for reference. Unfortunately, if we don't do something different there, then we've been told that that could go to all the way to a Class 9 rating. And that would be a significant impact to all of both the residential and commercial occupancies there. So we've worked with the commissioners and the board. We're preparing a plan to staff that station beginning in 2025. The good news is we were able to do that without having to come back to the taxpayers and ask for additional resources. If you remember back to my slide before about the station volumes, we were looking at adding an additional aid-focused resource for medical calls at our headquarters. We're going to have to defer that for at least a year probably, but we were able to reallocate that staffing to Station 32. So that'll give us a better footprint of coverage across the entire district and will ultimately benefit all the response area. We're also actively planning, and I again appreciate the partnership with the city here. I know everyone's familiar with what we anticipate, particularly with the Nisqually Tribes plan developments in the Quamuth Village and other areas of rapid development. That will certainly have an impact on our service delivery and demand, so we're working closely both with the tribe and city leadership to plan for how do we build capacity for that in the future. It will likely require an additional facility for us somewhere in the area of the development, along with those long-range plans for upgrading that station out on Yelm Highway, because it was never designed for permanent occupancy in its current state. And then the last one that I want to just close with, it's a bit bittersweet for me, if I'm honest. So I'm coming up on my 20-year term here with the fire district, and I think this is 33 in fire and EMS in total. And it feels right for me, and I made this announcement. Hopefully I'll get through it with less emotion here than I did when I made it to my staff, but earlier in this year, after long discussions with my wife and the family, we decided that it's time for the fire district, for its future, for a transition in leadership. And so I announced to the board my intent to retire at the end of this year. The good news is that I'm very excited about the current leadership team and the trajectory with which we're headed. And so I'm also happy to highlight tonight that and I should have introduced them at the beginning, but have both of our deputy chiefs, chief of operations currently, Jennifer Schmid, and as I already mentioned, our administrative deputy, Michael Sorofsky, and our board chair, Commissioner Rick Kelling. Thankfully, when I went to the board, I also came to them. I always try never to create a problem without a proposed solution. And so I went to the board and said, while I believe it's time for me to move on, I believe you also have significant talent among our existing leadership team. And so I asked for their consideration, and thankfully they listened and are moving forward now with working with Chief Schmid on a transition plan to become our new fire chief in 2025. So while, again, it's bittersweet for me to move on, I just want to close by saying how much I have appreciated the relationship of working with the council, members of staff, all the transitions that we've had. I know it hasn't always been smooth, but we've always been able to come to the table and work through things, and I feel like we are a much stronger community because of that. So thank you. With that, I would entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments for the chief?
I just have a quick comment. We meet with the deputy mayor, myself, and our city manager meets with Fire District 3. We try to do it on a regular basis, but we meet as often as we can. And it became really clear that the impact the fire district has on the city of Lacey, that we just needed some more updates on a more regular basis. And so this will be the first of, I think, will be an ongoing regular update from the fire district. We really appreciate everything you've done, Chief, not only for the fire district, but for our community. Your impact has been immeasurable. Your leadership is so admired by everyone I talk to. And we just wish you the best in your retirement or on to your next phase. And we look forward to continue to have more regular updates from the fire district. So thank you for all you do. And we look forward to hearing from the fire district on a more regular basis for the full council.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
Councilmember Greenstein?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Steve, for your service to the fire district, to the community, to the city. Had the pleasure of getting to know you pretty well, having served on several boards with you, from our HOA to EMS and TCOM and so forth. But what you've given to this community is immeasurable, and we really will miss your leadership. But congratulations and good luck on the next phases, and welcome, Chief Schmidt. We look forward to working with you.
Councilmember Stedman?
I would just mimic both Lenny and the mayor's comments. Chief, we're truly blessed to have you as long as we possibly did. You're a leader out in the community, leading, from top to bottom. You're the epitome of leadership. I hate to see you go, but I have all the faith in the world that the next one up is going to be just as great and awesome. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Denny?
And more so on the staff that you have. I recently had a call out to my business complex a couple weeks ago, and the response time and professionalism of the firefighters was just outstanding. And I think that just shows the leadership that is, kind of top down. And so I really appreciated it. I know my whole staff did too, with kind of calming everybody down. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilmember Vasquez?
I was struck by that pie chart that you showed about the frequency of different types of calls, because we call you the fire service, right? The fire department, but you do so much for our community, and you've been in that work for a really long time. So it's amazing, like the safety net that the fire department provides. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
I've been in several meetings with you and have enjoyed your leadership. As you were going through your presentation, this might seem off, but do we respond to when I-5 is on fire? Is that us too?
It
so
is,
it's not
yes.
just in the city limits, in the county limits. It's also state road too.
That is true, yes.
Okay.
We have both I-5 corridor come from the Nisqually River Bridge all the way to the city of Olympia boundary, about approximately Sleater-Kinney. It's always interesting when people call in where they land on the freeway as to who gets sent. But yes, that whole corridor is ours, along with State Highway 510 is also in our jurisdiction.
Well, thank you for taking care of ours and theirs for all the years that you did, and congratulations, Chief Schmidt.
All right. Thank you all. Oh, sorry.
Carolyn, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my thanks too. When you came on as chief, just a very smooth transition in leadership. And I hope to heck we're going to get invited to your retirement party.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I should have mentioned, I did on your on the dais there, I also left a copy of our annual report, which is in much more detail and highlights a lot more of the activities of staff that I didn't want to take the time for tonight. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay.
Once again, thank you all. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
We appreciate your update and look forward to many more.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is public comment. I don't know if we have any online. I didn't see any. And I saw here that we have one person who signed up, two people who signed up, but I wasn't sure if Dr. Jackson was here for public comment or if she was here for the presentation. Okay. Mr. Halverson? Is there John Halverson? Okay. Please come on up, state your name, where you live, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes if you can.
Dear Council, my name is John Halverson. I reside at 5016 Sheridan Drive Southeast in Lacey. I've been a resident since October of 1975, almost 50 years. I'm here on behalf of myself and dozens of other retired public employees who live in Lacey and the Lacey urban growth area. I'm here to talk about the Public Employees Retirement System. Now that system, in my case called Plan 1, is a 401A retirement plan for state, county, city, and some other special districts public employees. This PERS 1 plan was closed to all new employees after September 30th of 1972. So Plan 1's been closed a long time. Most of us have been retired for more than 25 years. The legislature terminated the PERS 1 cost of living adjustment, or COLA, in 2011 because of economic issues for the state, and that severely affected many retirees. Most have lost up to 35% of their purchasing power due to inflation, given that their fixed retirement income since 2011 has been the same. Data from the State Department of Retirement System shows that the average age of PERS 1 retirees is 80 years old. Their average annual income is just $27,922. That's a pretty small amount to live on. The cost of living is squeezing many of them out of their homes. They need that regular cost of living adjustment to survive. This morning, the State Legislative Select Committee on Pension Policy met to discuss and act on a proposal to resume the cost of living for PERS and TERS, which is the teachers, Plan 1 retirees. The proposal was to match the current COLAs for PERS Plan 2 and 3, which is what you are on. The committee voted 14-1 in favor. 4 people were absent, in support of our request for legislation to establish the permanent COLA. The only person or organization that testified against the proposal was the lobbyist for the Washington Association of Cities. We urge you to take a position in support of our proposal for the sake of your Lacey residents who are suffering economically and can't turn the clock back to start a new job at their age. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. For those who don't know, Mr. Halverson is our former mayor of the city of Lacey. Thank you for your service, sir. That's all we have for public comment. Is there anyone in these chambers wishing to address this council? Okay, seeing none. Next on our agenda is our proclamations, and our first proclamation tonight is our Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month, starting with Councilmember Dunning.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas during Hispanic and Latino, Latinx Heritage Month, we honor the rich heritage of the Hispanic and Latinx community and celebrate their countless achievements. And
whereas the observation began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week and was enacted into federal law on August 17, 1988, calling upon public officials, educators, librarians, and all the people of the United States to observe this time with ceremonies, activities, and programs. And
whereas the city recognizes and celebrates the diversity of community members that this month commemorates, honors, and pays tribute to individuals who speak Spanish, who are descendants from Spanish-speaking countries, are descendants from more than 26 Latin American countries, and who may speak a variety of different languages, and we recognize the Latinx identity also encompasses people in indigenous, Black, and African, Asian, and queer communities, and
whereas Washington has grown more diverse over the past decade, and with the Hispanic community now representing 13.7% of Washingtonians, with the Hispanic community in Lacey representing nearly 11% of the population, and
whereas Hispanic and Latinx community members have made immeasurable contributions to the advancement of the United States and the city of Lacey, including but not limited to serving in our armed forces as elected officials, public servants, essential workers, agricultural workers, teachers, business owners, cultural and creative industry leaders and innovators, and
whereas 2024 honors the theme Pioneers of Change, Shaping the Future Together, highlighting Hispanic leadership and innovation in diverse areas, and also emphasizing the importance of collaboration and building a better future. And
now, therefore, I, Andy Ryder, Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby recognize September 15th through October 15th, 2024 as Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month in Lacey, and encourage our community to celebrate the strengths that emerge from diversity and participate in activities to learn more about our Hispanic and Latinx communities, histories, and contributions to our city and society. Signed, myself, Mayor Andy Ryder, on this day.
And tonight, to receive this proclamation is Mr. David Puente.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. My name is David Puente. I'm a board member of Cielo, which is Centro Integral Educativo Latino de Olympia. So I'm a fairly new board member for the last couple of years now, and the operations team is here with me. So Kendra Galan, and I'll introduce her so she can introduce her team. But I'd like to share a little bit about the organization. If some of you may know, and if not, it'll be brief. Our mission is to promote community, self-sufficiently, and leadership of Latinx, Indigenous, and immigrant communities in the South Puget Sound area. We partner with local business, community, government entities, and foundation. We strive to provide opportunities for people to acquire skills and resources to actively participate in the wider community. We celebrate culture and traditions in our atmosphere of respect and dignity. We want to strengthen relationships between immigrants and their allies who are working together for social justice. Our organization focuses on 3 areas: education, counseling, and advocacy. On the behalf of the community, I'd like to thank the council, but I also want to introduce Kendra, who is our operations person, and I want her to introduce our team. They do outstanding work in the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Kendra Galan. I'm the operations manager at Cielo, and I'll be introducing Diana Torres, who is our community navigator here in Thurston County, and Dalila Vasquez, who is also our community navigator in Mason County. Thank you for giving us this proclamation, and thank you for also including the fact that our Latinx community is made up of different colors and shapes, as well as languages. And actually, a lot of our clients and students come from Lacey. They live here, so this is a place that they have been calling home, and they're in their second and third generation as well. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Councilmember Dunning.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas prostate cancer is one of the most commonly diagnosed cancers among men in the United States, affecting 1 in 8 men during their lifetime. And
Whereas prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death among men, with over 248,000 men diagnosed and more than 34,000 men dying from the disease annually. And
Whereas early detection of prostate cancer can save lives with a near 100% survival rate when diagnosed and treated in its earliest stages. And
Whereas the City of Lacey recognizes the importance of raising awareness about prostate cancer and the need for men to speak with their healthcare providers about prostate health and available screenings. And
Whereas community organizations, healthcare providers, and individuals throughout the community are encouraged to support efforts to promote education, provide screenings, and advocate for the early detection and treatment of prostate cancer. And
whereas increased awareness and education can empower men to take control of their health, potentially reducing the impact of prostate cancer on families and communities. And
now, therefore, I, Andy Ryder, Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby recognize the month of September 2024 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in Lacey, and encourage all community members to learn about prostate cancer, support efforts for early detection, and share this vital information with others to help save lives. And before we turn it over to the person who's going to accept this proclamation, I've been a part of this city council going on 15 years. You know, a majority of that time, I've been the mayor of Lacey, and I've signed or been a part of at least 500 proclamations during my time. This proclamation in particular is sitting very close to home because as I speak, I'm currently up in Seattle after my second day of treatment for prostate cancer. And earlier this year, when I found out I had prostate cancer, I kept it to myself because at first I didn't know what my options were. You hear that you have cancer and you don't know what the next step is. After lots of consultation, I finally decided a course of treatment. But I still decided to keep it to myself because I wasn't sure about what the outcome was going to be. But when I realized that this is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and as the mayor of Lacey, have prostate cancer, I knew that I had to take this time to make sure the word gets out as much as possible about early detection and awareness for prostate cancer. And luckily, I was able to catch this early. But as statistics show, if you don't catch it early, there is significant side effects and can lead to death. But if you do catch it early, there's lots of treatments available. And so first, I want to thank, of course, the deputy mayor who's had to step in for me this year as I've had to go to some pre-treatment therapy and sessions and try to figure out what my next steps were. I want to thank our city manager, Rick Walk, for being supportive during this entire time. And of course, I want to thank my family, the First Lady, who's by my side this entire time, supporting me. And also, I want to thank Liberty Hetzler, who is a fire commissioner, my business partner, and the mother of my children, who's been very supportive along the way as well. And so I just want to make this a learning moment. Right? I am young. I did not think this could be a possibility. So I thought this is something you have to worry about when you get older. But this is real. And so take the time. If you're a man, take the time to go get checked. All it takes is a simple blood test, and you can find out where you're at. And it is way easier to do that than to put it off and ignore the symptoms, and it can lead to unfortunate results. But if I can, by being public about this, if one person can go out there and get tested and catch it early and save their life, then this time has been well spent for me. And I'm happy to make that trade. So with that, I want to thank the City Council for their support and everyone who supported me during this journey. And with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
So obviously a proclamation that's very close to the heart of the city. And tonight receiving this proclamation will be Mr. Paul Eldenberg.
Thank you.
Thank you. And feel free to say a few words.
Oh.
You get one of those with a fancy thing, and it's got the
it
official
in here?
proclamation in there with the signature and the seal. And
Gonna hang that on.
yeah, you can.
Isn't that beautiful?
Donna's taking pictures tonight.
Oh,
That's Donna. There you go.
all right. Hey, thanks. Mayor Ryder, I know how you feel. I'm Paul Eldenberg. I represent the Olympia / the prostate cancer support group. I'm old and I forget words. You have to forgive me.
And I want to say that this award is not, for me, it's not an award, it's a proclamation. And they're not proclaiming that I get tested. I've already got prostate cancer, and I'm old. But the proclamation is to remind us to talk to our kids, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, and encourage them to get tested at least once a year. If you don't get tested, what can happen, and it's much worse if it happens to a younger man. I tell people to start getting tested at 45, but younger wouldn't hurt. What happens is that the prostate, you have prostate cancer and you don't know it. There are very few symptoms when you have it. There are a few. But the cancer eventually, if you wait a little bit too long, it will leave the prostate cancer, the prostate gland, and it will go into other organs in your body. It will go into the bones. It will go into your lymphatic system. And you'll notice one day that you have a backache. So you go to an orthopedic doctor and they do all kinds of studies and they can't find anything wrong. And then they'll say, well, why don't you get tested for prostate cancer? And it turns out that the backache was because the prostate cancer had migrated to the spine or the pelvis. And it's too late then. If you are detected early, there are very effective treatments that virtually eliminate the prostate cancer from your body. And but if you have a backache or some other problem, and find out that you have metastatic prostate cancer, you will be fighting that for the rest of your life. It's not a horrible battle, but it's disagreeable in a lot of ways. My group, the Prostate Cancer Support Group here in Lacey and Olympia, works with people that have just been diagnosed and have no idea what to do. And Mayor Snyder, Mayor Ryder, explained that so eloquently. So we are a group of people that have prostate cancer, have gone through all the processes, and are surviving. And we like people that are just newly diagnosed to come and join us for a few meetings and learn all the possibilities for treatment. Doctors try to explain it to you, and a lot of times they don't have time, and so they'll mention what their favorite treatment is, but there are many treatments, and as I found out, there was only one that was right for me, and I had to find that out by myself by talking to people that had prostate cancer and getting second opinions and things like that. Tell them to get tested, dang it. There's a lot of young men here. I hope you're getting tested because it's well worth it. It's a very simple test. It doesn't hurt a bit. I really appreciate this award. Like I said, it's not for me, it's for the young men we're going to be making aware of prostate cancer.
For the record and for the public, would you mind saying when and where you meet?
Yeah, it's called the Olympia/Lacey. I threw the Lacey in. Prostate Cancer Support Group. We meet Tuesday, the third Tuesday of the month at 6:30. It's going on right now. They're waiting for me to come. And it's monthly, and it's virtual on Zoom. So if you're interested in coming, I hope you are, if you have prostate cancer, and you can get a hold of me. Is there somebody here that has does Nicole? Nicole has my email. Ask Nicole, to send you my email, and I will send you an invitation to our meeting, a link. They're really nice guys, and they've all had prostate cancer. When you go to the meeting, all of a sudden you're among brethren. You know, they're people just like you, and it's very comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If I may, Deputy Mayor.
Please.
I just like I know that wasn't easy for Andy to do, you know what I mean? But that's who Andy is. You know, Andy will, you know, make himself vulnerable if it helps one person. And, you know, that's bold leadership, and that's what we need more in the world, you know, people doing the right thing. It's hard to share, you know, stuff like that. So
Amen.
Thank you for that.
We're with you.
Thank you. You know, and it is scary. I mean, it's been a scary year for me. I didn't know what my options were, and gentleman was absolutely correct. Early on, you go to a doctor, and every doctor you talk to thinks their option's the best option, and so you have to really do your research yourself. And it took a long time for me to figure out what was the best option for me, and I didn't know about this prostate cancer support group at the time. Luckily, in preparation for this proclamation, when I realized that this was Prostate Cancer Awareness Month and felt like I needed to speak out and to make sure that anyone who could, you know, listens to this or this gets picked up by the news or paper or whoever is listening, that there is options out there for you and for you. You know, don't be worried. There is a path forward, and we'll make sure that we get that information out for the support group, and we'll make sure that's readily available on our social media and other outlets that the City of Lacey puts out. So thank you. Thank you, Council, for your support. And like I said, if we can have one person, one guy who's been on the fence about getting tested or not, please go get tested, because if you catch this early, there's lots of treatments available, and it's not, you know, a sentence that you have to worry about. But if you don't get tested, that's when it can lead to all sorts of horrible things, and that's what we want to prevent. So, thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing, Deputy Mayor.
Please.
You know, my uncle was he was the vice president at AMA for 40-something years, almost 50 years. He used to say, it's not a matter of if or when you'll get prostate cancer. If you live long enough, you're going to get it. So, really? You know, it leaves to no question that, you know, it's something to pay attention to. You're going to get it if you live long enough. Just unfortunately, young people get it too.
Gotcha. Next item under our agenda is resolutions. And tonight we will be looking at Resolution 1157, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan Adoption. And presenting tonight will be our Assistant City Manager, Shannon Kelly-Fong.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. I am very happy to be here in front of you with our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan for Council's consideration this evening. Tonight, we just want to do a quick review of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Strategic Plan, and our recommendation is to move forward with adopting Resolution 1157, which would adopt the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Strategic Plan for 2024 to 2030. Just for a little bit of background, the Council has reviewed this on prior occasions, the latest one being August 20th, when the Council reviewed its message as part of the strategic plan. It also did a workshop with the message and did a review of the entirety of the plan on July 9th. In addition to that, our Commission on Equity motioned to recommend the approval of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan at their June 24th meeting. And I do want to recognize that we do have members of our commissioners here. In fact, we have all of our chairs, past and present, from the Commission on Equity here. Yeah. So I do want to really thank former Chair Thelma Jackson, former Chair Cliff Brown, current Chair Annie Clay, and current Vice Chair
Kim Sauer. Thank you all. And for the rest of our commissioners, I know Commissioner Hedgewood is also watching online, and Commissioner Makita Hart and Christine Stolberg for working on this document throughout the last couple of years. And I also want to thank our Lacey Youth Council representatives for being a part of this, and that was Alicia Blackburn and Samuel Tartarin. So like I mentioned, the Commission on Equity did recommend that the City Council adopt this at their June 24th meeting. And the purpose of this document is to create a strategic guide for the city to advance and support equity efforts in the greater Lacey community for the next 6 years. Specifically, the plan identifies ways the city can serve as a lead, a partner, and as an advocate, working with community partners to build a more equitable and welcoming place where diversity is celebrated, opportunities are equitable, and barriers to participation are eliminated. The plan aligns with many of the strategic plans for this community of the City Council, including creating a vibrant place to live, work, and play, an engaged community, quality transportation and infrastructure, environmental stewardship, and excellence in programs and services. The plan itself was developed over 3+ years with the Commission on Equity, so I really can't thank them enough for all of their efforts that they put into this. And the Commission on Equity, again, for background, was established by the Lacey City Council in 2021 to identify and advance opportunities to create a more welcoming community and continue critical conversations on race and equity, seek greater participation from underrepresented community members, and identify existing gaps and barriers which could prevent full participation in government and public policy. Specifically, they've been looking at inclusivity, education, and equity. As part of the roadmap to get here, they gained a lot of knowledge on city departments and services. They learned about processes and procedures used in local government. They worked on policies and program recommendations. And they also went out into the community and met with a lot of community members through community forums, community listening engagement sessions, at community events, and through community surveys. They went through a really developed process, and I'm highlighting a couple of steps here because we can't go over every single one of them here tonight. But I talked about that in community engagement, looking at those city policies. They worked on over 21 public meetings where they worked on developing this plan with city staff and hearing from city departments. They took this information, we reviewed it with our executive team and other city staff members. They reviewed their feedback, they continued to engage the community, they came up with a recommendation, and we reviewed this with council, and now we're here tonight with a resolution and recommending the adoption of that resolution. This just highlights those 21 public meetings and all of the areas that they went through. And this shows an example of the engagement efforts that the Commission on Equity and the city engaged with as part of this process. So what's in the plan? The plan has, I believe, over 250+ pages, and the intention is not to go over every single one of them here tonight, but just to give a very high-level overview. You can see the elements that are included in the plan are a vision, a mission, equity values, goals, and not just goals, but having strategies, baselines, benchmarks, and a way to be accountable and transparent to the community moving forward with annual reports and baselines. The 4 goal areas established with the plan are workforce and work environment, community access and engagement, policy, programs and services, and livability. Within each of these goals, there are sub-areas. So you can see here with workforce and work environment, it has the sub-areas of, first of all, striving to create a culturally competent organization that implements diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging practices by creating an equity plan internally, focusing on hiring and retention, and continuing to develop the workplace. The second goal area is community access and engagement, and through this, the city endeavors to provide accessible communications, meaningful and responsive participation, and improving community connectivity for all, through communications, engagement, relationships, and collaboration. The third goal area is programs, policies, and services. So the city works to integrate diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging into all city policies, projects, programs, and services, focusing on city policies, city services, public safety, parks, culture, and recreation, infrastructure, utilities, acknowledgements, and contracting. And the fourth area is livability, where the city aims to provide and assist with advancing equitable economic opportunities, a diversity of housing and human services, and a healthy environment for all, focusing on sub-areas of economic development, housing, human services, partnerships, and environment. Our recommendation, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, is to move forward with option 1, which would be to motion to adopt Resolution 1057, which would adopt the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have on this.
I would move that we adopt Resolution 1157, adopting the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging Strategic Plan for 2024 to 2030.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any comment or questions from the council? Councilmember Cox?
Well, I'm glad to see 4 of the commissioners and 3 of the chairs here tonight. I just personally want to thank you because I know this was a heavy, heavy lift, and you've come up with a brilliant document. So thank you.
I'm very proud of the Commission on Equity and the city and the youth council having stood this up and maintain it and create a work plan and do the community engagement and all the heavy lifting that happens here in these chambers, out at the meeting spaces, privately at home, people working on these things. And I say that because DEI programs are under attack. I don't know if you guys have been following the news or following the legislations in some of our southern states, but there are many places where DEI that just don't feel they need any diversity or equity or inclusion, and are stripping those things from college campuses, shutting them down, saying you will no longer get any funding, closing their doors in an effort to not have inclusion or equity or diversity, and it's sad. And so I'm very proud of what we have done here. I saw this program being put together in, I believe it was 2021, and watching a program get stood up through somebody's vision and a lot of hard work and a lot of communication and a lot of effort is something to see. When I watch the mayor doing this with our city staff, I wondered, is this going to stick? Is it going to work? Is this something that is going to run out of steam? And it didn't. And then the meeting started, and then the report started, and the updates came in, and then the youth council got involved, and we all came together as a community to really make this happen. And I'm so very proud of this community for this happening, and this is just being a part of. And now we literally take our thoughts and ideas and our things that we're going to do and run it through this commission, because we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes you leave people out and you don't even know you were leaving them out. Sometimes you forsake somebody and you didn't know that you were forsaking them, and this is just a safety net that we've put in place for our city so that everybody here feels welcome, they feel included, and there's an equitable passing of rules and laws and ordinances in the city of Lacey. So this is a huge congratulations for this city and this place and this time.
Well, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. This is a long time coming. I knew nothing about diversity, equity, and inclusion going back to 2015 when I happened to be on the chair of the Military Communities Council for the National League of Cities. And because I was the chair, they invited all the chairs and everyone in a leadership position to be a part of the first Race, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Council at the National League of Cities. And so I remember showing up to my first meeting, really not having any idea what they were going to be talking about. I knew that there was injustices in the United States, but being a white male, I really didn't know what the extent was. And that was really the first big eye-opening experience. And I was stuck with and became a board member of the Real Council, was their board liaison when I was on the board of directors for the National League of Cities to the Real Council for 3 different terms. And during that time, I realized that we needed to bring this back to the city of Lacey to take a look at it and to see, are we being inclusive? Are the things that we're doing here at the city of Lacey have equitable outcomes for everyone? Does everyone has the opportunity to be successful in the city of Lacey? And now we know, of course, of course they don't, right? And of course we need to do a course correction. And so one of the few things I had the ability to do as mayor is to start an ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee was just for informational use only. I was able to pull together some community members prior to 2021 and at least start talking about this issue in our community. And then, of course, when George Floyd happened, we already had members of our community together meeting about this issue, and we're able to transition within a couple months to have a full advisory board for the city of Lacey, and it's one of the proudest things I've ever been a part of as the mayor of our city. And to see this plan in front of us is like a dream come true. You're absolutely right, Deputy Mayor. Did we have the strength to bring this forward? Did we have the vision to bring this forward and to make a difference in people's lives that we don't normally know that we're making a difference for? And so that's why I was really proud to make this motion and to support this plan. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Commission on Equity. Thank you, everyone who's been a part of this. And most importantly, thank you, City Council, for supporting this from day one. It's been amazing to see the leadership around this issue, and we're making a difference in people's lives. We're going to make a difference in people's lives, and that's why we do this work.
Okay, well, is there any other comments from the Councilmember Vasquez, please?
I want to echo what others have said, that I am so grateful to those that worked on this plan. You spent a lot of time and energy, and you didn't go too fast. You dug deep to figure out how to do this the right way. And what we have here is this beautiful, detailed plan that's going to guide our steps into the future for the city. Like the deputy mayor said, we don't want to leave anybody out, but we don't know what we don't know, right? And there are systems that have been built over many, many years that were built by folks who didn't have a full picture. There weren't all the people at the table. And so these systems have been built that leave people out. This plan is going to help us lower some of those barriers so that everybody has a fair chance to succeed. So thank you so much. I'm honored to have been given the opportunity to support this work.
Okay, well, with that, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor of passing Resolution 1157, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for the heavy lift. Next item on our agenda is under the mayor's report.
Real quick, we've already heard from John earlier today during our public comment, but my motion is to reappoint John and Tulele to the Historic Commission for their second term.
I'll second. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. It has been moved and seconded to reappoint John Halverson and Tulele Patane to the Historical Commission. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you for continuing to serve, John.
Next on our agenda tonight is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. We have a item on our, a briefing item on their city manager's report tonight. It's the multifamily tax exemption application for 629 Woodland Square Loop, and a briefing will be presented by Jennifer Adams, our housing coordinator. And as she makes her way up to the lectern, I just want to have one point of clarification. As the council may recall, back in the discussion of the neighborhood commercial zoning code updates, there's some conversation about looking at the ordinance that a city has to establish multifamily tax exemption program, and specifically looking at the target areas and maybe considering expansion of the target areas to neighborhood commercial or other parts of the city. This particular briefing tonight is on a specific application in the existing target area of Midtown or Woodland District. And there's two different topics there. But for the council's awareness, the overall briefing about considering amending the ordinance to include other target areas will be scheduled for the October 8th work session. So with that clarification, I want to turn it over to Jennifer to present the highlights of this current application we have for 629 Woodland Square Loop.
Thank you, Rick. Good evening, council members and members of the community. My name's Jennifer Adams, by the way, Housing Coordinator, City of Lacey. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to try not to take too much of your time this evening, but I did want to provide you with an update for a project that recently applied for the multifamily tax exemption, a program first codified by the state in 1995 and then by the city of Lacey in 2014. You can, of course, find more information about the city's exemption program in Chapter 3.64 of the Lacey Municipal Code. This is a new addition since I've been here. I'm trusting that works perfect. So it's been a few years since an application for the multifamily tax exemption program was brought before the City Council. But before we get into the application itself, I want to provide a quick reminder of the main tenets of the program. The multifamily tax exemption program provides opportunities for cities to encourage the development of multifamily housing in certain areas. Originally, the program was focused on economic development and the creation of new multifamily housing. Over time, however, the MFTE program has also become an important incentive to support the development of affordable housing and implement the goals of the state's Growth Management Act. So under this program, communities may choose to offer an 8-year tax exemption for qualifying residential improvements that add new housing units in a residential targeted area designated by local council. A city or county may also offer a 12 or a 20-year exemption for developments that include income-restricted units. If a property owner chooses to participate, they still pay property taxes on the value of the land and the non-residential improvements. Recent years have seen expansion of the program, allowing more jurisdictions to offer the multifamily tax exemption and with a greater focus there again on affordable housing. The city adopted both the 8-year and the 12-year exemption within the Woodland District, now known as Lacey Midtown, in 2014. The 8-year exemption does not have any mandatory requirements such as income restrictions, and it is often put in place to promote market rate housing. The 12-year exemption differs, however, from the 8-year in that it requires a minimum of 20% of the units to be set aside as income-restricted housing for moderate and low-income households and for the length of the exemption. Each year, the completed portion of a project is assessed and added to the tax roll as new construction. Once the project is completed and the exemption is granted, the value remains on the tax roll and is allocated to all taxpayers. This is a process known as a tax shift, and this is the method that is used here in Thurston County. Once the 8 or the 12-year exemption is completed, the property owner resumes paying the associated property taxes. So in 2021, MJR Development was the first applicant in the city for an 8-year multifamily tax exemption in the Woodland District. The project is known as the Hub Apartments, and it brought 150 units of market rate housing to the district. In July of this year, MJR submitted a second application for an 8-year tax exemption. This new project is also located in the Woodland District, just south of Huntermer Park. This is a very unique conversion project of a vacant office complex into 50 units of market rate housing, including studios, 1- and 2-bedroom units. This is the first conversion project brought to the city and also supports the reuse of existing buildings. The application for the tax exemption was submitted on July 9th and was issued administrative approval on August the 1st. The next step in the process is to seek the project's tax exemption approval from City Council. The contract was, the contract was included in your staff report materials and reflects conditions such as timelines for construction and annual reporting requirements. It also serves as an agreement between parties for the tax exemption conditions. Though tonight is just a briefing, on October 15th, staff will return to council seeking approval for the city manager to enter into an 8-year multifamily tax exemption agreement, after which time a conditional certificate will be issued to the developer with an expiration date of 3 years from the date of council approval. Upon project completion, a second and a final certificate of approval will be issued to begin January 1 of the year following the final approval. And so for context, here's just an aerial view of the project site. So the yellow arrow there is where we are City Hall, so just south of City Hall. The project will face Huntermer Park, offering a community-like setting. And the site is just over an acre, and the building is retaining its original 4 stories. As mentioned, this will bring 50 units of market rate housing to the area. Construction is well underway, and the project is anticipated to be completed in May of 2025. And then just for some reference, here's a photo of the original building, and then just some good photos here of construction underway. If you've had a chance to drive by, you'll see that it has been taken down pretty much just to the framing at this point, which is really good to see. And then, and this one as well. So at project completion, here's a nice rendering showing what we can expect with the completed project. And then a few additional photos here, highlighting there again the setting towards Huntermer Park, the parking that will be found on site, as well as the main entrance there off of 6th Avenue. So as commented on before, staff will return October 15th, seeking contract approval. So if you have any questions, Vanessa is here. She or I can answer questions if you have them.
Councilmember Greenstein.
Thank you.
Just one question. Does the 8 years start with our approval, or does the 8 years of the exemption start when the construction is complete?
That was my question, too.
So, Vanessa, my understanding of the program is that the exemption begins when the project has been completed, so January 1 of following the year of completion.
Okay.
Is when that goes into effect.
Councilmember Vasquez.
What is market rate?
Are you asking the dollar amount of market rate?
Do we know broadly how much they're going to be charging for these apartments?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I would be happy to come back with that information, perhaps at our October 8th meeting. That might be something
Yeah,
worth
we
adding.
can ask and see if they're willing
Certainly.
to share that information, MJR Development. The key here, though, is that there will be no income restrictions on any of the units within this building as a part of the 8-year exemption request.
Oh, I clocked that.
Yeah, so it can change.
Partly
So we
why
can
I'm
come
asking
back,
the
but
question.
in the 2026, it could be different.
Yeah. I mean, I asked the question in part because we've been trying since 2014 to incentivize the development of multifamily housing in this part of the city. And it's really exciting to see that it's happening, right? This is the second project we've got in this spot. We're seeing more people having an opportunity to live in this sort of central area of Lacey near amenities like grocery stores and SPSCC. But between 2014 and now, the need for specifically low-income housing has dramatically increased. We have the housing allocation plan that TRPC has given us. We know that what we need is low-income housing. And I know we're working on that, but I have a strong feeling that we should be expanding the portion of the multifamily tax exemption that benefits low-income housing projects. This isn't one of those, so I hope we have a way of encouraging those to happen in the future.
And I think staff is very much looking forward to our conversations on October 8th. So we'll be exploring all of those issues.
I would say anytime you're adding units, which is, on affecting the market rate, supply and demand, right? If there's no supply, or, if there's a lot of demand, the supply is zero, it's going to be more expensive. So more units we add is naturally going to help the natural process of things. But I agree, it's like, I'm waiting for the day when people start using that 12-year exemption.
So then we would fill up with all our market rate before we start offering below market rate, and that with 2 years worth of no construction happening, that could be 10 years. I did have a question for this exemption. There is a portion of these units that needs to be below market, or no? Just a refresher on that, just real quick, because I was
not for the 8
not on the
year.
8, on the 12. Okay,
Correct.
and on the 12, how many units do they need to have below AMI, and what percentage of AMI are those? Is it 60, 80?
It's 80. So on the 12-year, there needs to be 20% minimum per state requirements. Jurisdictions have the latitude to adopt stricter standards if that's the direction that a jurisdiction wants to go. And then as far as the AMI, 80% is what the state requires there. Again, cities can implement a stricter income requirement if we so choose.
I would say it's stemming people to redevelop single-use buildings, which is also a great benefit to the city. Anytime you can be more diverse and, just instead of one single use, it's going to benefit the whole community.
And so since we've come out of COVID and office buildings aren't filling up the way they once were, it seems like we're getting some more of these conversions, which I'm very happy to see. But here we are once again with the 8-year instead of the 12-year, meaning that we're not going to get any below AMI units out of this deal. And just for so everybody understands area median income, I believe the AMI in Thurston County is it 96 now? 96,000 a year, somewhere in that ballpark. So if you're making 80% of 96,000, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 96. I can't say for sure. But if you're making 80% of that, then you would qualify for one of the 80% AMI housing. 60 is a better target, but we just don't seem to be there yet. According to TRPC's numbers, we also need some 40% AMI housing. And we have several nonprofits working on the 20% AMI housing, but we need the entire spectrum. And I don't know what other incentives we can give for developers to jump into some of those roles. So obviously some continued work needs to be done. I'm not sure what that's going to look like for us as a team, but these last few projects, haven't seen any 80 or 60 yet.
She has Vanessa some clarification.
And I think the mayor had something to say. So all I was going to say is just kind of focusing on this particular project, it is market rate, it is 8 years. I think part of MFTE, one of the benefits for affordable is that longer tax exemption timeframe. And the legislature recently actually added the 20-year that Jennifer referred to further incentivize that option. So those are all pieces of the conversation that we can have on October 8th about what we're going to do with the MFTE within the city currently and or in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, October 8th is coming up. We're going to have a lot of these conversations. There's not a lot of tools that we have, and I've made kind of clear that this multifamily tax exemption is the one that I'm least comfortable with because we're affecting other junior taxing districts by implementing this. Now, it is just a difference in the assessed value from what it currently is. They're basically keeping it at the assessed value either over 8 years or over 12 years. Then by year 8 or year 12, it jumps back up to what it normally be. And so it's not like we're completely taking it off the tax rolls, but there are impacts, right? There's now we have more people living there. There's more calls for our fire district. There's more impact on our schools. And so this is something that we need to sort of be careful with as we have these conversations. But it is sort of all hands on deck when trying to get some more affordable housing in our community. But that's, again, we set out a long time ago saying, hey, if we're going to have a vibrant Midtown, we need people living in Midtown. And this is one of the tools that we have seen been successful lately in getting it. This was around for a long time, and we didn't see any movement on it, right? And so MJR looked at our Midtown and looked at the policies we had there and said, okay, this looks like an attractive place for them to invest. And the city of Lacey has definitely been rewarded from their investments. And I know they have a couple other projects that they're even looking at in Midtown to bring even more housing. And so, but I think our bigger discussion is outside of Midtown, where do we go from there? And that's something that we'll have in October.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your report. And sorry.
I have a question still.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Dunning.
Just from my understanding, is there usually an application that's presented before a project starts with construction? Does anyone know the answer to that?
I'm sorry, I asked your question again.
Would we normally, in the normal circumstances, receive an application for the tax exemption before they start construction on the project?
Well, so this has become kind of new in my bucket of responsibilities, and so I'm not completely sure, Vanessa, when the application for the exemption came following when they started their project.
Yeah, so here's how I'll address that. This is only our second one, so I'm not sure if we have a regular process in terms of standards of how it happens normally, but what I can say is the code does require they submit the application to the city before we issue the building permits. And they did do that in this case. So we've reviewed it against the criteria within the code, and that's why we've authorized administrative approval, but it just has to come to council for the final authorization.
Just to add clarification, Vanessa's right. They have to get the building permit issued to show the project's moving forward, but they have to complete the process before certificate of occupancy, when that would eventually take effect.
And then is it pretty much a guaranteed approval process?
Well, yeah, because we allow it in this district, right? So it's already been on the books for a long time that the multifamily tax exemption is allowed within Lacey Midtown. And so since it's allowed, there's nothing administrative on our side. It's already been approved by code. This is just a process they're going through since it's already been approved by code.
Okay.
And just to add a little more clarification, it's an administrative process to make sure the application and the request meets the technical aspects of the multifamily tax exemption. It needs to come back to council because council has to authorize signing of the contract, and that's the second step in this process.
Thank you, Rick.
If I may,
Please.
I just wanted to remind especially the newer council members, that we had over 1 million square feet of office space in the city, and that was going to remain empty for forever. It was made for one use, a one tenant use kind of thing, and this reinvestment in this, because of this policy, now it hasn't hit our intended use of it, and that's having low income, but that building could still be sitting there empty, dilapidated, doing nobody any benefit. So that is a win. It'll come. MJR and companies like this see the value in this policy, and it's going to build and it's going to grow, and it's just going to happen organically.
Thank you for your comments. At the end of your report.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure if the council was complete. So yeah, thanks again, Jennifer, for that briefing. We do have a couple good of the order items I wanted to share with the city council. I think the city council is aware that we have a very strong relation with the 1-2 Striker Brigade out of Joint Base Lewis McChord through the Community Connections Program. And through that partnership, we do a lot of working together. They do a lot of volunteer hours in the city, as well as we provide a lot of support and efforts for them, especially when they are deployed. The 1-2 Striker Brigade is deploying to South Korea for 9 to 10 months. And I had the honor and distinction to be invited up last week by Colonel Nunn to their Casement of Colors ceremony to travel over to South Korea. And so I just wanted to let the council know that they really appreciate the support by the city of Lacey and the council, and it was a very, very nice ceremony to see. It was dignitaries from South Korea there as well. So I just wanted to let the council know that the brigade will be deploying, and then once they come back, there will be another uncasement of the colors, and hopefully we can have some lead time that we can make a reception back and invite the colonel down to have a report out on their deployment. The second item, yesterday, St. Martin's University had a dedication for their new nursing hall, which is on the 4th floor of Old Main. This is very significant. As I think the council is aware, there's been the challenges over the years in staffing up, and especially with nursing profession, in the nursing profession in our local hospitals and clinics. So we've heard reports from the emergency rooms in the past and trying to work with those issues. St. Martin's University, along with the community college, have been really putting effort into developing their nursing certificate and nursing advanced degree programs. And this is the second step of investment St. Martin's has made to expand off their nursing studios. And with this dedication of this hall, are able to expand capacity by 50 students in their, or 50% of their capacity in the nursing program. So again, they're meeting that labor demand and need. And of course, that's from some great donations by community members. Inga Marcus is the primary contributor, as well as efforts from Providence and Multicare as well. And then that was followed up by a dinner. At the dinner, I just want to share with council that the new president, Dr. Bill Brownsberger, at the following dinner, thanked the city and reread the proclamation that the city council issued to St. Martin's University. And again, there was a very well received and very much appreciated by both St. Martin's University and Abbey with the support and proclamation issued by the city council. So I wanted the council to be aware of that as well. And that concludes my report.
All right. Next on our agenda is our boards, commissions, and committee reports, and the mayor is up first.
Great. Well, last Friday, I had the mayor's forum, and it was at the Olympia City Hall. And the big discussion at this mayor's forum is that we actually had a presentation about the World Cup coming to Seattle. And it's very rare that we ever have a presentation in front of all the mayors. But in this case, the World Cup coming to Seattle in 2026 is going to be one of those events that's probably going to gather more visitors to this region than any time since the World's Fair that happened, what, in 64 or 62, way back when. And so they're expecting anywhere from 750,000 to 1 million plus visitors from out of state, out of country, coming to this region. And that we're been guaranteed a U.S. match actually in Seattle, which is, of course, going to be a huge event. But they're also going to have training for World Cup teams down in Portland and in Seattle, and they're looking at a couple different areas within Washington as well. I was thinking, boy, wouldn't it have been nice if we had the rack ready to go with some updates, and we could have had a World Cup practices down here in Lacey, but we're not quite there yet. But the one thing the committee that is sort of responsible, who we got the presentation from for Seattle and all the sort of activities that are going to happen within Seattle, they decided to look at sort of this new idea of having World Cup areas where activities can go on during, it's really like a 3-week period where the World Cup is going to be happening. And so they came down and talked to the mayors. And of course, we said we would love if Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, somewhere in our region was one of these designated sort of World Cup fan areas. And so we heard about it. We had a lot of discussion. Of course, we're asking the Olympia and Beyond, the VCB, to get involved and see if we can submit a proposal to have this area be one of those sort of fanned areas for the World Cup, because we believe, really, because where we're located between Portland and Seattle, that we'll have a bunch of traffic going up and down I-5, and wouldn't it be great if we could have that go on here and have all of our hotels filled up with activities going on. So that is what was going on during the mayor's forum. It was really interesting. Like I said, we usually don't have a presentation like this, but the mayor of Olympia, who was hosting, had been in contact with the committee, and they gave the presentation during that meeting. Then the Transportation Policy Board met last Wednesday, the 11th, and it was a very long meeting. The first thing that we talked about is just our annual update for the 2025-2028 RTIP amendment. And so this, of course, every jurisdiction that has sort of adding a new project that's not on the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan needs to go through this their internal process. Then it needs to go on to Transportation Policy Board that gives a recommendation to the full TRPC for inclusions so they can get funding. We've had quite a bit of turnover on TPB, and so there was some questions during this meeting about can the TPB question different projects that are asking to be included in the RTIP. Like, is there a possibility that we could deny a project because we didn't like it? And so I'm trying to made it clear to the full policy board that has historically not been the function of our transportation policy board. Each jurisdiction has their own internal process to decide if that needs to go forward. Now, we do look at it and make sure it is, it meets the intent of it, but we've never denied a project going for RTIP so a jurisdiction can have funding. But the majority of our meeting was an update on our call for projects applications. This is the second time we've gone through this new process where there is some performance, or we're looking at these projects and making sure that the best projects are sort of moving forward. Prior to the last time we went through this, we really just sort of looked at it based on an allocation basis on sort of vehicles miles, lane miles they had within each jurisdiction. We sort of looked at that and sort of set aside funding for the most part to try to make it as fair as possible that each of the jurisdictions are getting their fair share of federal funding. That is no longer, we can't do that any longer. We have to have some requirements and some performance measures in there. And so this is the second year we're going through those performance measures, making sure these projects are the best projects to move forward. And so we got our first reading of all those projects. One of the things that came out of the last time we did this is that we felt, the Transportation Policy Board at the time felt like we didn't have enough information. Like, by the time it was getting to us, basically everything was scored by the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, and TRPC staff, and we really didn't have much of a chance to, the policy board didn't have much of a chance to score it ourselves. And so this year we've decided to have an ad hoc committee, sit down with staff and the TAC, and for us to be members of the policy board to be a part of that process to do the scoring. And so there was a invite for members to be a part of that. I will be chairing that committee, and we'll do that. Committee will meet sometime in October, ahead of our November meeting, where we'll actually make a recommendation on which projects score the highest to the full policy board. That then will go on for a recommendation to full Thurston Regional Planning Council for adoption. And then our last, and that took up the majority of our 2-hour meeting. We extended the meeting, but we still basically ran out of time. We just had enough time to talk about our congestion management process. So now that our region is big enough that TRPC is has some more federal responsibilities because of the size of the Thurston County. One of these things that we have to do is come up with a congestion management plan. And so we got to first sort of take a look at this and some of the methodology behind how we're going to look at this issue. Mostly it's the major corridors that we're looking at through the Thurston County. We did have some discussion about why maybe some corridors weren't included that should be included. Specifically 510 wasn't on that list. And so I think we're going to have some more conversation about that in an upcoming meeting. And with that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Offline, I'll ask you about a congestion management plan. Interested to hear talk about that. I am next, and I just have a couple quick reports. JASCOM met last Monday, September 9th. Immediately we got into the budget and the jurisdictional estimate. So this year's budget is going to come in a little over $2 million, $2,030,000. Our budget is per capita at JASCOM, so it just kind of depends on how many people you have in your jurisdiction. I'm not going to go and break down the numbers for each jurisdiction, but I do want to say that the rebates over the last couple of years have kind of offset the per capita ask. As you guys know, over the last couple of years, we've actually gotten money back from JASCOM, money that wasn't spent. So it kind of weighted down the ask. And so we will be getting back to regular levels. I think Lacey's portion is $417,000. That will help fund JASCOM this upcoming budget season for them. With population shifts and changes and annexations, all those things play a role in the per capita amount. that we have agreed to pay for these services. But I can tell you that these services are worth every penny. Adoption, relocation, licensing, and those are pretty much the heavy hitters in terms of what affects the JASCOM budget. The budget will go up for a vote in December. The volunteer program has been updated. Prior to the most recent change, the volunteer program was like a 90-minute video, and then you decided whether you wanted to volunteer, and that didn't really seem to be working out all that great. Even though JASCOM does get a ton of volunteers, but a 5-minute video and a tour of the facility is what's going to happen in the future, and is happening now, I believe. Is that right, Shannon? It is happening now. And so that has yielded better results, because a 90-minute video is, well, you guys do Zoom just like all the rest of us. And so now we have people taking a look at a 5-minute video and deciding, hey, do you want to come in for a tour? And conversion rates are going up because of it. 50 to 70 volunteers, 500 to 600 hours in a month. Last year there was 8,000 hours of volunteer hours, which is the equivalent of about $100,000. And there's also going to be a new weekly newsletter for the volunteers, and I suggested that we not just touch volunteers with it, but we might as well touch the entire database with that newsletter, because who knows how many more volunteers or grants or donations we might receive by touching the entire database. Let's see, upcoming programs. There is going to be some in-shelter training for 1st through 12th graders, educational training partnered with Timberland Regional Library. And one of the things that we kind of talked about that would be a future ideology would be an outreach vaccine clinic. I don't think we have the resources to do that yet, but that is one of those kind of far-off goals. Let's see. There are five full-time field officers. In July, all staff took cruelty training by Dr. Smith. In August, there was a cockfighting ring that was broken up. It was about a year ago. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but you heard about it? Okay. The Gambling Commission. And so that came to fruition August 8th of this year. That person pled guilty. House Bill 1234, interesting. Animals cannot be removed and rehomed in case of a trial. They can be removed and rehomed in case of a trial, but there's nothing that says that in the RCW that person can't have animals again, unless the court actually says it during the trial that you can no longer have any animals. So there's a little bit of legislative work to be done there. Let's see. In August, there was adoption special fees, but that was waived because of a $5,000 grant. Adoptions more than doubled that month. So grant dollars are hard at work at JASCOM. There is a shelter collaboration. There's a $22,000 grant over the next 18 months to reach the highest live release rate that we can possibly reach. Hopefully, trying to get to 90%. Let's see what else we got. And that is the end of my JASCOM report. LTAC met yesterday. It's been a long week. Was it Tuesday? Today's Tuesday.
Last Thursday.
I'm sorry. It was last Thursday. They kind of bleed together. I guess sometimes you do really need to take a day off. So LTAC met last Thursday. And in that meeting, we have received all the LTAC applications. Of course, we have more applications and asks than we have dollars. You guys are used to that. And but 11 of those applications were new, never before seen applicants. So very exciting times in LTAC. We are in the process of doing our scoring and our rubrics and all the fun stuff, so that this Thursday, on the 19th, that's right, it was the 12th. This Thursday on the 19th, we will be reviewing applications. We have scheduled, I believe it's 12 interviews, especially the new people. We kind of want to get them in and hear their story and see what their organization is about. So we have a meeting set up for the 19th and the 26th, and that will complete our funding cycle. We will be doing maybe an off-cycle meeting so that we can go over some of the things we had talked about, the possibility of setting aside maybe 10% of these dollars just for new applicants, but we never did really codify that, and a couple other items that we wanted to talk about off season, and that is my report. Next, we have Councilmember Greenstein.
So just one report tonight. TCOM 911 met on September 4th. Most of the meeting was dedicated to discussion about the changeover of the radio system. That's the big project we've been working on for quite a long time now. A couple of developments there. All of the sites for the new antennas and the new towers and everything are moving along. We did have to approve a fairly large change order, about $400,000 for site work at the DuPont station. The engineers decided that the current layout wasn't going to work anymore, and we had to put pilings in and things because of earthquake, and it was mostly military requirements because they own that property. So anyway, it's expensive, but it's necessary. We have to have a site there. The one that probably affects Lacey the most is the new system. So a lot of the larger warehouse type businesses have systems within their buildings to help the communication with emergency response. And Chief may know more about this, I don't know, but anyway, it's over half of the businesses in Thurston County that are going to need to upgrade this equipment happen to be in Lacey. And that comes from the fact that we have so many of the large warehouse type businesses here. I think the city is in the process right now of notifying those businesses because it is going to be fairly expensive. It's pretty major what they have to do to come up to be able to have the emergency systems work within their buildings. Chief, do you have anything on that you want to add?
So yeah, modernization of technology is always a big hurdle for everybody, right? And as we move from an analog system to the digital talk groups, that's a different environment and a different system. So I think referring to like cellular enhancers, right? And those types of things, right? So as they went to 5G and different things, in order to get those things to enhance and grow the signal to get through their concrete buildings, there are enhancements. But that would be for, frankly, all their phone systems anyway. But in addition to the new T-String system, we should have much better coverages in those buildings with the new system.
Yeah, and they're actually doing, Motorola, who's designed the system, is actually coming out to do some testing at several of those facilities to see whether they actually need this additional equipment or not, because the new system is far greater than the old system, and we'll be able to hopefully have signals in a lot of these buildings without needing this repeater equipment. So it remains to be seen how many of them will actually need it, but they're in that process right now. But that will affect some of our businesses for sure. And that is my report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, technology. ORCA met on last Wednesday, and Budget Finance Committee reported pretty healthy reserves and budget, but they're having substantial IT payments coming and updating software and stuff coming down the road, or coming down the line. So they want us to be aware of that. And us council members and as a city, we can relate to our language for public comment period. We did some cleaning up of our bylaws and in regards to the public comment period. So some housekeeping and just making sure that we limit opportunities for hate speech and people hijacking our meetings. So that's always a plus. We also, in regards to bylaws, we are working to update and implement e-signatures. We did some work on our employee handbook, and all that's readily available online. And then efforts to launch a enhanced social media effort, get the word out about Orca and our clean air agency. They added Facebook and Nextdoor. Quick reminder to remind people that there's still a burn ban in effect. And last couple months, air quality was moderate, which is good. There's a lot of fires out, and it's starting to cool down now, but it's still summer, so that's always a plus. And then we're getting ready to start a 2-year audit, and it's lasts about 3 or 4 weeks. And then they also reported on a couple properties that they had. A couple of tenants moved out, but a couple moved in, and I can relate to that. I always like a good, smooth transition where everybody gets a win, in that situation. So that is my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Stedman. Councilmember Cox.
All right, two, and I'll make them as brief as possible. Intercity Transit met on September 4th, and I am thrilled to be able to report that on September 8th, Intercity Transit restored full pre-COVID service to the system. It is very exciting, and for students who are going to be starting their term at Evergreen this month, they're going to also restore the very late hours that help transport students from downtown Olympia back out to the college, so they can party pretty late into the night.
What about from downtown to Lacey?
Possibly. No, actually, no, it won't work that way. But anyway, this is the last of 17 incremental steps that began in June 2020 toward restoring pre-pandemic level service. And as somebody who was serving at the time or COVID hit, Intercity Transit had gone to this enormous high because in 2018, voters handily approved a state sales tax increase that would allow Intercity Transit not just to patch what needed to be patched, but to implement transformative changes. One of those affected Northeast Lacey. We have the Martin Way more frequent runs, which is the busiest route that they have. And we were able to implement the zero fare pilot program, which has proved to be very successful and a model for the country. And to go from 2 months, we approved it in January, and it would go from 2 months to seeing 20% leap in ridership and another 20% leap in ridership, and then whap, COVID happened, and they had to shut down the buses altogether for a while. So it was an emotional time. It was a very tough time, and so being able to say we're back, fully back, and then some is really a big deal.
Is that program going to continue? I know we have another 18 months, or I guess 15 months on the zero fare.
It's likely. I mean, I can't speak for the whole authority, but fares were such a small percentage, like 1% to 2% of Intercity Transit's budget. And in order to institute a fare system, they'd have to invest in this software program that King County and Pierce County use. It's called the Orca system. And not only is it expensive, but then there's a big annual cost of using it because that system is the one that actually does the accounting and processing of all that. So
we'll see.
Yeah, it would actually almost cost more to implement that than it would be to continue with the zero fare program. A couple of Lacey-related items. They're going to be starting a verbal wayfinding system on a pilot basis at the Lacey and Olympia Transit Centers. This is for visually impaired riders. The company that does the software is called Navalens. They offer a free app that works with mobile phones, and it picks the program connects with your phone and will literally tell you, you are X number of feet away from this. Your bus is going to be coming here, and is supposed to be a really, really neat system. The authority expressed interest in also adding this to bus stops, but we're going to start first things first with the 2 transit centers, and it's a pretty reasonable cost. It's $8,700 for the pilot, and it can be extended another 6 months for only $300. So it'd be interesting to see that come up. And then we also approved a $178,413 expense for the Lacey Transit Center and the Centennial Station. This will be drainage and pavement repairs. So taking care of business there. And the lot, which is Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston Clean Water Alliance, met on September the 11th. During our work session, we heard a report on the Sea Level Rise Response Collaborative. Some of the things about that are they're going to be refining their flood monitoring strategy, developing guidelines to incorporate sea level rise considerations into capital planning, continuing to work on long-term public financing mechanisms. This is for the really expensive things that would have to be done to protect the downtown area from sea level rise. They're also going to be looking at evaluating what's called vertical land motion and subsidence in the downtown area. They're going to be updating the website for the Sea Level Rise Collaborative, pursuing state and federal funding, and then they've asked to hire an administrative assistant. So the total cost for 2 years is $360,000. Olympia bears half that burden, and then the other half is divided between LOT and the Port of Olympia. So there's that. We got a second look at LOT's draft budget, and it's mainly housekeeping changes. We looked at strategic planning, which will take some time. We talked a little bit about workforce development in terms of development and succession planning, employee engagement and belonging. And let's see what else. Oh, we adopted a 2023-24 budget amendment, and letters were sent out to the various jurisdictions. Lacey has gotten its, and the purpose of that letter is to say this is looking like what the rates are going to be. But we have to inform our partners about that. And that's about it. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for your reports. Councilmember Vasquez.
2 quick reports. Thurston Regional Planning Council met on Friday the 13th. It was not very spooky at all. We got an update on the state's efforts around space use planning for state agencies. We had a guest from the Office of Financial Management, Yvonne Knutson, come and do a presentation on what the state's been doing to reduce their leased and owned square footage for their office buildings for state agencies, since they have low occupancy these days, since the state has embraced telework in a big way. We've seen a little bit of that here in Lacey as well, with the lower occupancy of some of the office buildings that used to house state agencies. We also had an update on the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan. The news that I wanted to draw your special attention to has to do with review of the assessment for partner jurisdictions supporting TRPC. A little while ago, I sent out the summary of the meeting that includes the presentation on the assessment fees. They're considering a modest increase to the assessment fees for partner jurisdictions to make sure that they have the money to keep their technology updated, because TRPC is a portal for a great deal of federal and state funding, but it mostly goes to projects. And so the money they can use to update their servers and purchase new laptops and do like data imaging and GIS stuff, they run very lean there, and they've seen sort of deficits in that budget over time. And so they're going to be proposing an adjustment to the assessments to jurisdictions soon. So they gave their presentation. There was a subcommittee that identified a recommendation from a series of options. They presented that to us. The information is in the presentation I sent out to y'all. TRPC has not taken action on this yet, but we anticipate doing so next month. So please take a look at that. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll take those back and get them answered. We also had just an update on our legislative goals and asks for the upcoming legislative session in January. So we're probably going to be asking for something in the neighborhood of $31 million all told in projects. Most of those are focused on South County and the smaller cities. So that's kind of cool. And we're going to have a gathering in October to review options for high capacity transportation. There's going to be a special like half-day presentation that TRPC staff are invited to, and I'm going to be participating in that. And that might get added to our list of legislative conversations with representatives. There's also the Week Without Driving challenge that's coming up, and I'm going to try to do it. So the Week Without Driving is something that TRPC supports. It's also supported by Disability Rights Washington. They invite members of the community and elected officials to try to just go 1 week without driving. And this year it's September 29th through I think October 5th or October 6th. And it's hard. If you haven't done it, if you're used to just getting in your car and driving around, try even for a day or two. Try just getting to all the places you need to go with our busy schedules without a car. And I bike, I ride the bus sometimes, but it's still very challenging. The purpose of it is to give you that frame of reference for the members of our community that can't drive. Either they cannot afford a car, or maybe they have a disability, they're not able to drive. And it is really useful to be able to think about, how would I get around to all the places I need to be if I couldn't drive myself? Would I ask my friends and neighbors? Would I take the bus? Does the bus go where I need to go? What if I couldn't get there because I was in a wheelchair? So I'm going to try to participate in that, and I invite y'all to join me, even if not for the whole week, maybe for just a day or two, just to be thinking about it.
Is it designed for that for us to do it in inclement weather, because that's 75% of our weather pattern here? Or is that the deal?
I mean, it's not, early October is not the worst weather. They didn't schedule it for January. So we might get lucky. We'll see. The other update I have, the Board of Health met last Tuesday, and the main item on the agenda was a proclamation on Suicide Prevention Month. So we heard a presentation from Olympic Health and Recovery Services. We talked about the 988 crisis line. I think I've talked about that here before, but there used to be a long phone number to remember, the suicide hotline number, and now there's a new phone number. It's not 911, but it's 988. So if you're in crisis, if you're considering suicide and you don't know where to go to get resources, you can dial 988 and get local resources and support. There's also training that the county staff provides. It's called Question, Persuade, Refer training, and it's free through the county. So I wanted to share two statistics, or two pieces of information from the proclamation that we put forth, just to kind of bring this home. I think it's really important. In 2023, 17% of 10th graders in Thurston County reported seriously considering attempting suicide in the past year, and 12% reported making a suicide plan. That's a really high number of very young people. And the other thing that I wanted to share from the proclamation is that talking about suicide does not increase the risk of suicide. That is a thing that people used to believe. It is not true. Instead, if you talk about it with a friend or a loved one that you're worried about, you can actually reduce anxiety, you can open up communication, and you can get them the resources that they need. So if you're worried about somebody, ask the awkward question so that you can give them support.
Thank you, Councilmember Vasquez. Councilmember Dunning.
Just one report. VCB met earlier today, and the meeting we had last week, they have one meeting left with the Board of County Commissioners. I expect we'll pretty much experts now on the destination master plan with as much as we've talked about the last couple months. But now they, once they have that meeting done, they can actually start implementing it into their 2025 business and marketing plan. Along with that change, one of the big things we really talked about today is really their mission has been more informative for, the better part of the last decade. And they're really wanting to switch to more of an advocacy model. And really, now that things are narrowed down, what their focus is really be able to push those, endorse things that are associated with those. And so we really talked about what the best guardrails are on making sure that if we do endorse anything, it's appropriate for the board to actually be endorsing, who would be able to recommend people for that, whether it be, internally with the VCB or externally, and how we would have organizations be able to submit those applications, and if it meets and aligns with the priorities and values of the VCB. So we really, really went in depth and had a good conversation about that, and that looks like we're going to proceed with kind of testing that model out so that the VCB can actually be proactive and push tourism a little bit more in our area, and not just kind of update people on informational type stuff. And part of that along, we've been talking a lot about the legislative session coming up. The tourism funding was cut in 2025 or 2012 in the state of Washington. That was kind of a result of the recession in 2008 and kind of the budget cuts that came along with that. A lot of other states did that. A lot of other states also re-implemented those when they saw how much that lack of funding affected tourism in those states. Washington hasn't really caught up. So now they're actually going to be proposing some ways to do that and how to fund tourism in Washington. So that could really expand things. Their ideas are more not a tax, but an assessment, which we had a very long discussion on what the difference between that is. We really could have used Troy in that discussion. But it targets more of the specific industries involved than taxing everybody. And so that should be coming up and opening up a lot of doors to push a lot more tourism in the state. And the VCB is really excited about hoping that that's something that can really promote tourism in our area, because our whole state has really been lacking those funds to be able to do things. So that's where we ended things. If you guys have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them, but that's all I got.
Thank you for your report. Well, then we have reached the end of our agenda. Again, Mayor, we are with you. We are continually here to support you. So we appreciate you being able to make it tonight, but know that our support is with you at all times. And with that, unless somebody has something for the good of the order, we will call this meeting adjourned. You keep it classy, Lacey.
Thank you, Council.